Social Development Minister Sisisi Tolashe has finally appeared before Parliament to answer allegations of improper staffing and her daughter's theft from an employee, among others. Tolashe is accused, among other things, of employing an unqualified private secretary who later became the acting chief of staff. There is also an allegation that she employed an aide in her official capacity, half of whose salary went to the minister's daughter, among other charges. While some opposition MPs were ready to grill her, she had strong backing from the ANC. With all these allegations and investigations, how is she still a minister? Hello everyone, welcome back to Joe Talks Politics. I am your host, Joseph Musia. Let's get right into this. If you are still not sure that the ANC has completely lost its way, look no further than Social Development Minister Sisisi Tolashe. Tolashe is a case study in how power can insulate leaders from consequences. She's a symbol of political impunity in the face of mounting allegations. After weeks of reports and allegations of misconduct, Minister Tolashe's appearance before the Parliamentary Oversight Committee was highly anticipated. She found MPs itching to hold her to account, and the meeting quickly turned into a high-stakes confrontation over these serious allegations. At the center of it all is the appointment of an unqualified and inexperienced 22-year-old as her private secretary and later elevated to acting chief of staff. The Public Service Commission conducted an inquiry into this and other appointments and presented its preliminary findings to the committee. Here's the PSC's chief investigator, Hendrika Sitole.
When we requested information from the department, they provided us with her curriculum vitae, but we were provided with 3 CVs. The first CV is the CV that she herself submitted, but when she submitted the CV, she submitted to Mr. Khatla, who is her uncle, and also Mr. Khatla, after receiving the CV, she submitted it to the former Chief of Staff, Ms. Simons. So I'm going to start with the CV that she submitted herself to Mr. Khatla. So the CV that she submitted to Mr. Khatla, it reflected that her work experience was a sales and marketing assistant for 4 months at Rosebank College, and also that she volunteered as a library information center assistant at Rosebank College. But however, when Mr. Khatla emailed this CV to Ms. Simons, it reflected that Ms. Mabileja had 3 years experience as a volunteer in the Deputy Minister's office. This is the Deputy Minister, Tlengiwe Mkhize. It indicated that she was providing assistance to the private secretary. And when Ms. Simons received this CV, she submitted it to HR. But when it was submitted to HR by Ms. Simons, it indicated the same information that was initially submitted by Mr. Khatla, to say that she had 3 years experience as a volunteer in the office of the DM. And now the CV, it reflected Ms. Simons as her reference. So when the Public Service Commission identified these inconsistencies, we interviewed all the persons involved. Ms. Mabileja indicated that she never worked with Ms. Simons. Even Ms. Simons indicated that she never worked with Ms. Mabileja. But when you look at the CV that was submitted to HR, it's indicating that she worked with Ms. Simons, and also Ms. Simons is reflected as her reference as well. So these are some of the inconsistencies that the Public Service Commission identified during the investigation. But in a nutshell, Ms. Mabileja did not meet the requirements of the post in terms of experience and qualification. Then I'm going to move to the findings pertaining to her acting appointment as Chief of Staff in the Office of the Minister. The Public Service Commission found that since Ms. Mabileja was irregularly appointed to the post of Private and Appointment Secretary, she did not meet the requirements to be appointed as Chief of Staff. Because when you look at the requirements for the post of Chief of Staff, it requires somebody with extensive work experience at senior management level and the understanding of functional areas of the executive authority portfolio. And also, given the fact that Ms. Mabilicha was in the post of Private and Appointment Secretary for a period of 1 year, this cannot be considered to be extensive experience, but limited experience.
Tolashe distanced herself from the decision, telling MPs she was not responsible for staff appointments, and instead shifting the blame to the department's former Director General.
Chair, I must not get involved on the appointments of officials, but you would know, and the committee members are aware, that that is the responsibility of the Director General, which was the case, it is still the case even now.
It is one thing for the minister to claim innocence. However, it is widely understood that ministers typically play a direct role and exercise significant discretion in choosing the individuals who serve in their private offices. It is therefore highly unlikely that a Director General would appoint a private secretary for a minister without the minister's personal approval or selection. These positions are closely tied to the tenure of the minister, which is why officials in private offices often move with a minister from one department to another. In practice, these are essentially political appointments. The controversy doesn't stop there. She is also facing allegations that vehicles donated to the ANC Women's League were diverted by her to her family. On this issue, Tolashe denied misleading Parliament but refused to answer detailed questions, arguing that the matter is now before the Ethics Committee. She also maintained that because the donation was made to the ANC Women's League, it falls outside Parliament's oversight.
The matter, Chair, came before us as a parliamentary question. This parliamentary question, Chair, was sent by one of our honourable members. As per the norm, I responded to the parliamentary question, and Chair, in that question, I made it very clear that the cars were meant for the ANC Women's League, not me, and this is why I did not declare them. I guess there's a perception that I misled Parliament. However, I want to reinstate that I did not mislead Parliament. The matter now, Chair, has been deposited to the Ethics Committee, which I have deposited my own affidavit to the Ethics Committee. The matter is now at that point, which I will request that we leave it there until it has been concluded at that point. About the Women's League, that's a political matter. I guess the political organization is dealing with the matter.
That argument didn't sit well with some MPs, but it did receive backing from others. Opposition members, including Action SA's Darlene James, pushed for answers, particularly on the vehicle allegations.
Your daughter is driving the ANC Women's League's vehicles because it is registered in your daughter's name, right? Your daughter also goes and sells the vehicles of the ANC Women's League. So your daughter is busy with a lot of things. I'm not sure when you declared and when you responded to my question when you said that because it shows, the record shows, I'm just not sure, I asked the team to go and print it, that both those vehicles were registered in your children's names. So this means your son is also part of the ANC Women's League.
However, ANC MPs, along with committee chairperson Bridget Masango, insisted that the issue was beyond the committee's mandate and should not be discussed further.
Now that we know that this was a party political issue, I would hate for us to be exercising oversight over the issues of the ANC.
But Chair, the minister then responds in here, if the minister wasn't going to take questions on this, in this report, the minister then responds and says she did not mislead this committee. So she's telling us that she did not mislead this committee. She should have then said on that page that she's not going to answer any questions to it. So she cannot come here and say she didn't mislead us and then expect us not to probe her on her telling us that she didn't mislead us. We can then probe into it if she's responding to it.
All I'm saying is that the minister said that she did not mislead Parliament.
So I'm telling the minister and I'm showing the minister that she did mislead Parliament.
Okay.
And we cannot continue with these delay tactics, Chairperson, because this has been continuing for way too long.
I don't want you to delay with the delay. I also don't like delaying tactics as a person. All I am saying is that this portfolio committee on social development cannot be traversing on issues of the national what is your name?
African National Congress.
Yes, that one.
ANC.
ANC. Let's put it that way. I am saying cannot preside over over a committee that is now deliberating on issues of political parties. I'm not even competent to do that.
If, as the committee, we want to ask about the donation to the ANC Women's League, we need to ask the ANC Women's League, and not the minister here. There's no report that, otherwise, next time we'll say, please report about the table that was donated in the ANC Women's League. Why are you reporting about the cars only as the committee? Because it is still the same Minister of Social Development where the table has been donated to I'm making an example, to the ANC Women's League. Let us not allow it and discuss it.
Then came perhaps the most troubling allegation. Tolashe is accused of employing an aide in her official capacity who allegedly ended up working at a private home in the Eastern Cape. According to claims presented to the committee, the aide's contract included a clause stating that half of her salary would be paid to the minister's daughter to contribute to household expenses. Tolashe denied wrongdoing.
About the food aid, Ms. Noma Tamsanga Kuhlane. Chair, Ms. Noma Tamsanga Kuhlane was employed as a temporary food service aider under Regulation 57(2) of the Public Service Amendment Regulation. Chair, on this salary that was split in two, I can categorically state that Ms. Kuhlane was employed by the department in the official residence in Cape Town. When it comes to the payments to the daughter, Chair, I have no knowledge of that because Ms. Noma Tamsanga's salary came straight from department to her bank account. Ms. Noma Tamsanga, Chair, got ill when she was appointed, and you got to realize that I was reported that she's unable to stay in Cape Town because of her state of health. She was then told that she had to be in Eastern Cape. It is when she was in the Eastern Cape, stayed with the daughter, that between the two of them, they had their own arrangement, which I was not aware of. I am still not aware of. When I asked Kanyisa, my daughter, she had no knowledge of that, except for them having to stay together, share things between the two of them, which I have no knowledge of. Ms. Noma Tamsanga, like everybody else, was supervised by the Chief of Staff in the office of the Minister.
But Darrelyn James arrived at the meeting armed with evidence.
Minister, you say that you had no knowledge of this with regards to the food aid, right? You say that you had no knowledge of this, but the pay slip of the food aid, her bank statements, her appointment letter, has your ministerial letterhead, and a very different story. So if I look at this letter, this is the contract that was given to us. Sorry, I just needed to break just now so that we can actually print this. This was the contract that was given to your aide. It does not even have a letter on it. This is the contract that you were saying you are not aware of. Let me read this to you. I'm going to read it as it is. Appointment on contract as food aid to the Minister of Social Development. No date on here. right? Gives me pleasure to inform you that your contract of employment in terms of Section 9 of the Public Service Act as amended, read in conjunction with Regulation 57 of the Public Service Amendment Regulation to this department has been approved with particulars indicated below. Commencement date, date of assumption of duty. So there's no date there. Job title, food aid. Nature of appointment, fixed term contract for a period of 6 months. Remuneration breakdown, 8,000 Rand a month. 8,000 Rand a month. Minister's house allocation, 7,670 Rand per month utilized for household, right? Your contract appointment is subject to conditions and requirements as stipulated in the employment contract. So here it is, Minister, that says half her salary goes to your household. Here we have copies of her bank statement, right? So this is not what social media says. This is the facts. This is signed, right? Here we have copies of her bank statement, Minister, where it shows, right, that we have a pay slip also. A pay slip shows that she was being paid a net monthly salary of 15,814 Rand and 47 cents. But her banking records show that she was only keeping half her salary, right? And payments going to Makanyu. Say that name nicely for me. Makanyu, that's her name, right? Is that your daughter, Minister? Because here it shows her details. It shows a full salary going in, and it shows half her salary going into your daughter's bank account.
Opposition MPs were scathing, condemning what they described as the exploitation of a vulnerable worker and criticizing the minister for failing to take responsibility.
The minister took no accountability for any of the scandals that she has just presented on. It's never her fault. It seems to be everybody else's fault, which is very concerning for me because in the beginning of her presentation, the minister speaks about the need to be out for accountability and transparency, but yet that is not currently happening in this portfolio committee at the same time. Now, Chairperson, if it's correct that the DG and the DPSA misled the minister, well, it seems like everybody's misleading you, Minister. Everybody in your staff is misleading you, from the department to the ministry. Zonke, they are all misleading you. And that for me is a problem, Chairperson, because it shows and it points to a trend that perhaps you do not have a grip on what is actually taking place in your department and within the ministry. And unfortunately, Chairperson, and I am protected in this committee, it does point that perhaps you are not fit to hold office of Minister of the Social Development Department. If you are constantly being misled by everybody around you, it raises serious concerns of your effectiveness as the Minister of Social Development.
Despite the growing list of allegations, deflections, and unanswered questions, Tolashe continued to hold her position with visible backing from within the ANC. The issue here is not just about the allegations against the minister. It is because as the president of the Women's League, she's a high-ranking member of the ANC. This is a party that is still reeling from the electoral setback of 2024. She, more than anyone else, should understand how the image of corruption hangs over her party and what role it played in the ANC's falling to a 40% party. On top of that, she heads a department that serves the needs of the most vulnerable groups in South Africa. I would argue that as president of the Women's League, she's the custodian of ethical leadership, accountability, and integrity in public service. She is expected to uphold the highest standards of governance, ensure fairness and transparency in appointments, and protect public trust in institutions that serve the poor, the elderly, children, and people with disabilities. In both her political and governmental roles, she carries a responsibility not only to comply with the law, but also to set an example for public officials and party members alike. Any allegations of irregular conduct, therefore, attract heightened scrutiny because they risk undermining confidence in both the Department of Social Development and the broader principles of clean governance. The knowledge, however, that their party will stand squarely behind them no matter what, means Minister Tolashe and many others can go about their lives as if nothing ever happened. And a political party that communicates impunity for its high-ranking officials can kiss its electoral chances goodbye. South Africans have shown election after election that the glorious history of fighting for freedom is not enough to keep living in hope. What do you think? Please share your views in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this episode, like it and share it. And please, if you are not yet a subscriber, consider doing so. That was another episode of Joe Talks Politics. From me, Joseph Musia. See you next time.